It was the summer of 2014 in a quiet hill town. The town wasn't famous for anything except its silence. Surrounded by forests and old stone houses, it was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and strangers were noticed immediately. That summer, however, something strange began to happen, something people still talk about in whispers. It began with a single sighting. A shopkeeper named Ramesh was closing his small grocery store around 9 p.m. The street lights were dim, and the road outside was empty. As he pulled down the shutter, he noticed a girl standing across the street. She looked about 10 or 11 years old. She was wearing a bright yellow dress. Her hair was long, and she stood perfectly still, staring toward the road. Ramesh thought it was strange to see a child alone at night. He walked a few steps toward her and asked, "Where is your home?" The girl didn't answer. She just stood there silent, looking at him, but her expression wasn't scared or shy. It was blank, almost distant, as if she wasn't really seeing him at all. Ramesh felt uneasy. He turned for a moment to lock the shop. When he looked back, the girl was gone. He assumed she had simply walked away, but that was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, several people reported seeing a girl in a yellow dress always alone, always silent, always appearing for a few moments and then disappearing. A taxi driver claimed he saw her standing near a bend in the road at midnight. He slowed down to ask if she needed help, but as he reached the spot, she was gone. An elderly woman said she saw the same girl near the old well behind her house, standing motionless in the early morning fog. Each witness described the same details: a yellow dress, long hair, silent, expressionless. Soon, stories began to spread across the town. Some believed she was a lost child, wandering at night. Others whispered darker theories that she wasn't alive at all. But the mystery deepened when the schoolteacher, Mira, had an encounter that changed everything. One evening, Mira was walking home after visiting a friend. The road passed through a small wooded area. The air was cool, and the wind moved softly through the trees. That was when she saw the girl, standing in the middle of the path. The yellow dress seemed unusually bright in the fading light. Mira approached carefully and said, "Are you lost?" The girl slowly raised her hand and pointed toward the forest. Mira felt a chill. "Do you live there?" she asked. The girl didn't speak. She simply turned and began walking into the trees. Mira hesitated, but curiosity pulled her forward. She followed the girl along a narrow trail. The forest grew darker and quieter with each step. The sounds of insects and wind faded, replaced by a strange stillness. After a few minutes, the girl stopped near an old stone structure, ruins of a house that had burned decades earlier. Mira looked around. When she turned back to speak to the girl, she was gone, not walking away, not hiding, gone. Mira searched the area, calling out, but there was no answer, only the sound of leaves shifting under the wind. Shaken, she returned home and told the townspeople what had happened. That was when an old man named Hari spoke up. Hari had lived in the town for over 70 years. He listened quietly to Mira's story, then said something that made the room fall silent. "There was a girl," he said slowly, "many years ago, who lived in that house before it burned." According to Hari, about 30 years earlier, a family had lived in the house in the forest. They had a daughter who loved wearing a yellow dress. She was often seen playing near the well and along the forest paths. One night, a fire broke out in the house. The parents escaped, but the girl did not. Her body was never found. Some believed the fire had destroyed everything. Others believed she had run into the forest in fear and never returned. The town eventually forgot the tragedy, until now. After that revelation, fear spread through the town. People avoided the forest road after dark. Parents kept children indoors in the evenings, but the sightings continued. A group of teenagers decided to investigate. One night, they walked to the ruins with flashlights, hoping to prove the stories were just imagination. At first, nothing happened. Then one of them noticed something near the old stone wall. Footprints, small footprints in the dust. As if a child had just walked there. They followed the footprints a few steps and they simply stopped, in the middle of the ground, as if the person had vanished into thin air. The teenagers ran back to town, terrified. Months passed, sightings became less frequent, but they never completely stopped. Every now and then, someone would report seeing a girl in a yellow dress standing silently near the forest, or at the roadside, or near the old well. Always silent, always disappearing. Then, one winter evening, a traveler passing through the town stopped at a tea stall. He overheard locals talking about the girl and laughed, dismissing it as superstition. That night, while driving out of town, he later told police he saw a child standing by the road. She was wearing a yellow dress. He slowed down, rolled down the window, and asked if she needed help. She looked at him and pointed toward the forest. He felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of dread and drove away without another word. The next morning, he left town early, refusing to stay another night. Years have passed since then. The ruins of the house are still there, slowly being reclaimed by nature. The forest path remains quiet. The town continues its peaceful life. But even today, some people claim that on certain evenings, just as the sun sets and the light turns golden, a small figure can sometimes be seen standing near the trees. A girl in a yellow dress, silent, watching, waiting. No one knows what she wants, or why she appears, or whether she is truly a spirit. or something even more mysterious. And perhaps the strangest part of the story is this. Every person who claims to have seen her says the same thing. She never looked frightening, only sad, as if she was still searching for something she lost long ago and could never find again. And that is the mystery of the girl in the yellow dresses story that continues to be told, not as a legend, but as something people believe they have truly seen.